like to call, you can start, okay?
I am fading it right now.
All right, so good evening, everyone. I'm going to call to order the meeting for the Raleigh Planning Board. Tonight's Wednesday, September 8th, 2021 at 7 p.m. On tonight's agenda, we have a new public hearing and 3 continued public hearings and a few items of additional business. The first item of new business is in regard to a special permit application for an outdoor illuminated sign for the Dunkin' Donuts store, Unit B1 and B2 at 144, 150 Newburyport Turnpike in Raleigh Plaza Shopping Center, located in the ZBL section, in the zoning bylaw, section 8.6 outdoor illumination standards, including standards for illuminated signs associated with Assessor's Map 14, Lot 31, zoned in the retail and business light industrial district. So, do you have someone for the applicant on that?
That's me.
How are you?
Good. I'm going to take this off.
Please do, yeah, it's, you know.
Seeing the door, I thought I needed it.
I didn't read the door.
I noticed you guys got little back cave entrances. You sneak in. Yeah, that was pretty good. So yeah, thank you for hearing us. I guess we're here basically, trying to seek approval for 2 different digital menu boards, which are located in the back of the building, the regular digital menu board and then a digital preview board, along with the storefront signage, which is internally illuminated, essentially channel letters. Dunkin' Donuts, or Dunkin' Now, is going through a global rebrand, and part of that new image is kind of what you're seeing here, being that the location is located in a plaza. There's a few different things that you're not seeing from that new image, just because of the restrictions of being in the plaza. But we're hoping that we can change from the externally illuminated to the internally illuminated, which is a better match to the next gen, the new image, along with the digital components in the back. Those are definitely part of the new image.
The existing sign in the front of the store, is that internally illuminated?
It is not. It has gooseneck lighting.
Okay.
In most of the plaza does. I think it's Brookline Bank down at the end. They've got all channel letters down there, which kind of, I think, sparked the conversation with the franchisee, wanting to see if we would be granted the allowance to be able to put that up as well.
Good. And Kirk, as far as internal illumination, aside from some of the issues we deal with light pollution, we can allow an internally illuminated commercial.
Yeah, we allow the internally illuminated, and I mean, they're here because the internal illumination, which I believe the other one was actually an internally illuminated sign. Wasn't this sign previous? Was that internally?
No, that is external. Yeah, existing right now is external with the goose.
But it was because of, I think these new channel letters, like that's the reason that we're doing the review, and also they're doing an animated message board menu sign in the back. It's kind of like McDonald's, part of the rebranding.
Right, but as far as I'm still on the channel lights out front. I mean, our ordinance now encompasses the idea that we can allow for internally illuminated lights with the restrictions we open and close with the store hours, so we don't want them lit up all night.
Which I'm sure is fine.
Yeah, there's some standard restrictions that you make sure.
I would expect
turn it off at the end of the night.
And importantly, there's some calculation of coverage area relative to square footage of. I mean, that doesn't seem like it's going to run into any problems, but we know.
It's no real, in terms of the area, the other side is the same.
Okay, gotcha. So we're
It's actually smaller. It's probably about 30% smaller.
At least 5 letters less.
Yeah, well, that too. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, well, that seems in line. And then, and in the back of the store, you already have a couple of internally illuminated signs. These are more these are interactive.
Well, and just to Kirk's point, it's I know he used the term animated. It's not animated in the sense of something moving or scrolling or anything like that. I'm sure you've seen them. That's just kind of
it's a giant iPad.
It's essentially it's really what it is. It's a Samsung screen.
Right.
So they're TV screens. And you just really didn't see them because they couldn't get the technology in the Northeast good enough to deal with the weather for years. So that's why you're kind of starting to see them now.
They can change the prices.
Well, absolutely. It's functional all around. They're not out there. And I'm sure you guys have seen the old Dunkin' static menu boards, the little panel slots, they all fall out, the gel inserts fall out. I mean, the boards just, they don't maintain very well. This is steady, static image, perfect illumination all the time. It can always be regulated just like a screen. If it's too bright, it can be turned down. They're set to self-adjust. So, you know, when the lights go off, when they turn on, I mean, everything around it kind of adjusts to the ambient light around it.
No.
And nothing, the only thing on it that you'll see that moves, and I wouldn't even say it moves, it has a little order confirmation screen in the corner as you're placing your order, and it just lists it. Everything else is completely static.
Everything shuts off when you're not open, right?
Absolutely.
And so this, the freestanding sign, the one that you're changing, that's not illuminated right now.
No, that's all external the way it is. That whole sign is built that way.
Yeah.
I believe it has ground lights that shine up, if I remember correctly from surveying it. And then the secondary pylon is the same thing. We're literally just taking off the old panels, putting on same exact square footage of what's there.
But illuminated.
But no, that's all externally illuminated.
Oh, okay, the one on the right there?
Yeah, it's just the rendering, it looks like it.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But that's the new image with the white background, it just pops out a little.
Okay, that was the one, given that it's not illuminated, I guess that kind of alleviates.
Yeah,
those
the
concerns.
only thing internally illuminated is the letters over the storefront.
Okay, yeah.
So that's pretty much it. That, it's really just a change of.
Right. Is there anyone from the neighborhood or the community has any comment on this proposal? All right. What do you guys think? Anything that stands out? I mean, I think Kurt pointed it out. It's nearly identical to an application from your neighbors across the street for a very similar display out back.
Right.
And
I actually drove through to look at it
Okay.
before I came, and it's literally the same thing. I think the square foot, I wouldn't doubt it if it came from the same manufacturer, which it probably does.
sure.
I think it's gonna help the plaza in general, because the plaza should have done something with their signs years ago. Nothing's changed.
Maybe to move the line along.
You know what, I was literally just gonna say that, that's actually part of just technology, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, I'm not a big tech person, but that's what it does. All of it works together, different headsets and computer systems inside. Everything's integrated to the drive-through, because that's the majority of their business,
The order
especially
comes
since
up on the
COVID.
screen inside rather than having to remember it.
Oh yeah, and it's all meant for speed of pace. So.
I have no
And probably, an example is probably down there and, just down the road in Ipswich at the, right?
The Dunkin' Donuts there in the
Dunkin'
square.
Donuts, they've already gone through a change and.
That probably has, I didn't do that one personally,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, that if it went through the remodel, it should have all those elements.
They've actually changed that. So
That's
it's
a
an example.
Now, as far as things like, I mean, for lack of a better word, brightness, how do you measure the brightness of this, and do we have, what's our standard for, we kind of got away from the measuring.
To measure, but it really is a matter of glare. There's no direct glare
Okay.
from a light fixture.
Yeah, given where it's
So
located,
this-
there's no traffic issues and.
Yeah, so these
Got
back-
that retention wall right behind it, I mean, whatever is even up above there, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't see any
Storage
noise issues
facility.
or, is that what it is?
Yeah, I don't mind.
Yeah, so these, this being, the channel letters being internally lit, they're kind of being filtered anyway by the color of the,
Right.
fixtures.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to make sure, and I think, I can't imagine this is an issue, particularly where we got away from that strict measurement and now we're more just
Yeah.
design. It's more of a little more workable standard, you know?
Well, and to Kurt's point too, unlike the old Dunkin' signage, they were more or less box signs and cloud signs where it had a lot of white outline around it. That popped a lot more. The new channel letter is more the image now, it's much cleaner, it's a little upper scale than what it was before.
Is Duncan spelled right?
I hope so. For now, I think we got it. I can't promise they're gonna change anything, but.
All right, well, anybody have any more questions about it? Think we're ready to take a vote?
Make a motion, we approve the special permit, the outdoor illuminated sign.
Second.
Very good, well, We have Kevin's motion and David's second to approve the application as presented, without any additional,
Can we close the public hearing?
oh,
Oh, we forgot. No, we yes.
Yes.
no, but we need to close the public hearing.
Motion to close it.
Okay.
Yeah, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, so, on the motion to close the public hearing, and Troy's second, I'll take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. So no one in opposition, motion carries, and we also have, the second motion on the floor from Kevin, seconded by David, to approve the application as submitted. All in favor, say aye. Aye. So the ayes carry. Congratulations, and thanks for coming in, appreciate your time.
Appreciate it, thank you.
What's the timeline on that, you know?
I think, now, I think we're looking at, beginning of November, I think is what they're looking at now. It's pushed around a little bit. This will help maybe speed it up a little,
Good.
but yeah, I think they're looking at end of October, beginning of November.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Got you here sometime.
I just think that the next hearing, they just screwed up form, so lucky,
Well, good, and we're almost on time here. So we have, the second item on the agenda is a continued public hearing, site plan review for the operation of a nano brewery and tasting room with the consumers, we consider it a consumer services establishment at 60 Main Street, further identified as Assessor's Map 15, Lot 41, which consists of approximately 1.404 acres and is located in the central Sendy district. So I think, Kevin, you got,
I'm gonna recuse myself.
so I'll just note on the record that Kevin is recusing himself. And if you wouldn't mind, thank you.
Sure. Joanne here on behalf of the Thomas Brewing LLC and Kevin Moriarty, the principal of Anthony's Team Site Plan Approval. This project has been before you a couple of times. It's basically simply site plan approval because this board has deemed it to be a consumer service and therefore is permitted by right use. The one issue, however, is always you need to provide for sufficient parking and traffic throughout the property. We've gone through many iterations of the plans. I can show you my laptop too, and I have a lot of them. But we did provide the most recent version that I think everybody's gonna be very happy with, and that I know Larry Graham actually had reviewed. He gave you,
I was,
Oh my gosh,
well, I just, not to cut you off at all, I saw Larry's first review and I was like,
Right.
oh my God, this is going
I as
nowhere
well.
today, and then right behind it, I saw something that made me, it was 180.
yes, I agree, because when I first saw that plan, also on 9.3,
Oh,
I
yeah.
did the same exact thing as Larry Graham did, and I said, we need to change this, and this. I marked the whole thing up, sent it in, and lo and behold, Bob Grasso, did his job and complied.
Do we have any, aside from that,
Yes.
do we have any, where are the copies,
Well, his
Oh.
letter that we're talking about is that.
that's fine, I just can't see that.
Absolutely. So the revisions were wonderful, because what they did, to just give you a summary, right? So last time we talked about the fact that the car dealership had permitted certain spaces, and the car dealership can't park in any spaces other than those that were approved by the I think Selectmen and Board of Appeals, because the Selectman is the one who issues the license, and then the zoning board issues the permit. So, what we had done, and it's a good depiction, is it possible to make it even bigger? Just a little bit? Yeah, there you
let's
go,
see.
under the Zoom component, I think it's probably
Where is it?
right there.
Right there.
Oh, no, okay, so if you go,
It's a little plus button right next to it.
oh, there's the plus button.
I can
Oh,
zoom
you
in.
young people. I give them my phone all the time, right? So basically, can you go down a little bit just so I can show them the parking space designation table? Keep going. Okay, here we go. So what we did was we actually identified each parking space according to the color, so you can see it on your plan. So the retail use requires 7 spaces, right? 6.8 is the math, 7 we give. The 3-bedroom apartment, it requires 3 spots, 3 spots we give. The dealership outlined by permit actually was permitted to have more parking spaces, but the dealer has reduced the number to just 7. So he's only allowed to use 7 of those parking spaces, and they're identified. Then the tap room, it requires 18 spots, 12 of which are exclusive and 6 are in common. So that's just basically whatever the spaces that remain, they use, give and take. Oh, you're gonna, okay. So so that was, I think it was, Mr. Spalding commented on the fact that we didn't have, some spaces were kind of not, maybe we want to have the public come in. So
Right.
what we actually did was we expanded the footprint of the pavement. So
I saw.
Okay, because it's, yeah, good, there's earlier comments that you were going over the left there.
Exactly. So if we could just show them, you know, in large, the actual site, and then we'll go over Larry's comments very quick. So what you see here is, see the expansion? I wish I had a pointer. See the expansion right here? This is where the COB, so the edge of the berm is. So you can see where it is. And then it loops around the corner. Before, we had ended it, you know, where the prior limit of pavement was. So based on your comments, we expanded that. And now those parking spaces actually are on pavement. And you can see that we have no parking, and I asked them to eliminate that building. There's no point to it, it should be on a plan that you're looking at or approving, because it's not before the board at this time. Now, in the future, I can assure you that they're gonna come back. The owner does want to expand, but that's a separate site plan. Right now, this is just to be able to get the tap room in and operating. As Mr. Graham asked, we made it all one way, so you come in, you come out. The reason for that is because of the aisle widths. We also angled all the parking, which you can see. So Mr. Graham had said, you know, look, you need to do all of this in order to make it work best. I mean, presently, it works pretty well out there, and people have the straight-in parking, but we understand that once you approve something, you really need to have it be on paper what it is.
Well, right, and it works well now, but there's no tap room there.
Exactly, exactly. There is a diagram, and basically, yeah. So we have this particular parking scenario. So you can see that we actually relocated the handicap space, and so now you can see where they are located. And Mr. Graham has reviewed and approved the location. So what we do is we have one right near the tap room, and we have one right near the retail. Because the requirement, you know, you should provide for the easiest means of access for people with some form of disability physically. So we have done, and we have accomplished that. And now, what the issue is Mr. Graham has provided his comment letter, and I know he's not here, but you have his letter.
He's here.
Oh, he is?
He's on.
Oh, hey Larry. Okay, so what Larry has asked for is he doesn't like a couple of parking spaces and is asking for them to be eliminated, which I would request them not to be eliminated, but for a few reasons. So basically, there was a letter submitted on September 8th, and he does go through the fact that we did respond to a lot of those comments. And then he said, listen, I still have some issues relative to parking spaces, 34 and 35. So 34 and 35, if you look at them, are actually, where are they? There's 33, I don't even see 34 and 35. I don't think there are.
Yeah, I believe
Can you see
them? They're up front. These two yellow ones up front.
Okay.
I mean, the two.
I think he did comment that
There they go, I
backing
see
out
that.
of those
Backing up,
front end spots would require you to back out onto Main Street.
And you know what? I don't actually think it does it? I think there's actually pavement.
Is there much of a setback?
This is all pavement. So when you come out, you back out and you come in, and where the right of way is, you know how it is, where the right of way is, where the travel path is, and where the access is.
Yeah.
And by the way, those are currently used parking lots.
How do you get out of it?
You back up, you go out.
You have to back up all the way down the front of the building?
No, you can't. No, you just go front,
It's
and
wide,
then
there's no
it's-
curb, it's just wide open.
Right.
You're back into.
It's edge of
one end.
pavement, but there's no berm there, there's no curb. It's
It's
all,
development.
I mean, that is truly how they do it.
The smart move is to back into those spaces.
There you go, Mr. Jekyll. I don't disagree with you at all. So I mean, I would ask, look, if they're already there, they're gonna be used really for loading and offloading the retail establishment. That's really what they're gonna be used for. And then people coming in and out. I mean, it's not that difficult to maneuver those spaces. And then parking spaces 14, 15, and 16, which are these? So they're parallel spaces. I mean, I recognize in Boston, you know, some people can't parallel park, but they're sufficiently sized parking spaces so that if you know how to drive, you really can do it. And the two end parking spaces are relatively easy to do, and the person who parked in the middle, they didn't know how to do it. So I would keep them personally, and they kind of exist now. Then 23, 24, 25, which is up at the top. So 23, 24, 25 are the spaces, again, they're there now. And they're parallel spaces, and you have to be able to know how to parallel park. There is room behind them.
Where, I was just
Yeah,
looking something
right
else,
here.
which 20,
Up
up in
top.
green or the blue?
23, purple kind of.
Okay, so which were the first, where's the 14 through 16?
14 through 16 is right here.
Oh, the green
I
line,
apologize, yep. So basically, Mr. Brand doesn't really think that those spaces should be 3, he thinks they should be only 2.
Well, the one to the far right's a tough one. I think the far right's a tough one.
Which one is?
The very top one to the right is at 23.
20. This one, 25, the one at the
No.
end?
23.
closest to
Oh,
Main Street,
closest to
in the
Main
purple.
Street.
So
Okay.
the bump out of the parking lot makes it tough.
I don't disagree with you there, because you've got to maneuver in the.
Correct, so you gotta back into that
Without being in the traffic. So I mean, I think that you
well, not
probably.
even into the traffic, if that's a curb
'Cause you'd have to
line, if
try and
that's
get-
gravel edge, I don't know
How
what
do
the
you get
edge.
in it, huh?
What is that?
I agree with Larry, and go to 2, and then move the one we're talking about back a little bit.
Yeah.
Because right now, I don't know the number of it.
24, purple?
Purple, far left.
Yes, I think I
It's
agree.
hanging out there into the travel lane.
You're not right, you're right. If you actually converted 25, 24, 23 into just 2 spaces, I think they're
And pull it in
maneuverable,
from the
which is what
street a
he's
little bit,
suggesting.
and then it still would be giving you more room coming around that turn to go out.
I agree,
Very good.
I
I
agree.
feel bad for the plow guy when he comes around the corner, or I feel bad for whoever's car's in 25 when he comes around the corner.
And he will be. We all know what happens then. I've done my fair share of plowing.
Is the bold line the definition where around the curves, is that implying that you're gonna install curbing, or?
These are,
There are,
these are the 23 that.
there's berm being installed on the exterior, yes, there'll be a berm
Some
on
of
the
this is
exterior.
just
There's no
straight.
berm on the street edge, on the edge pavement
Right.
here. There's none, but around the back, this new line, they're gonna,
I know.
like right
my
here, it's a
parking,
bermed
because
parking
Is it
area.
Cape Cod berm?
Maybe
Yeah.
from the back in.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know that, the one that,
You
What
can
is it,
drive.
16 foot?
I think, yes. Although I've seen people drive now over vertical granite.
Granite all the time.
Ah,
Right after you put it in, normally.
thank you, yes,
That's-
I actually
that's the
put
best
granite,
part.
vertical granite curbing in, they drove over twice, I'd have it replaced twice. But of course, I didn't know who did it, so I just found it. But anyhow, so it is gonna be Cape Cod berm. So I mean, I agree, I think that we should probably convert 23, 24, 25 to just 2 spaces, because,
The
And what's
two-
the,
The 2 on Main Street don't bug me, I mean, you're back into traffic, you're back into
And
traffic.
it's an unloading,
It's not an uncommon situation.
I know, no, well, it is present there currently. But I do agree, I think 23, 24, 25, even though they kind of park there now, I think probably having it out clear.
Nobody there now.
There's no tap room. So, you know, eliminating it and going just to the 2, it makes sense.
So, okay, we can work with those.
Oh, there was a question, the health department posed to me about the residential use, I think on an earlier, it had said 1 bedroom, is it?
It's 3 bedroom.
It's 3 bedroom.
It's 3 bedroom.
Okay.
Wait, it's upstairs, it's just 1 bedroom.
Oh, it says 3 bedrooms on the plan.
Yeah, that's wrong, it's just a 1 bedroom.
Oh,
It's a small little place, we wish it was 3 bedroom.
Okay,
Okay.
so I even have it in the decision street because it says it on the
So does
plan
that
is 3.
affect your parking?
So,
Yeah.
because it's only 2 spaces.
Right, so you
I was
can
wondering why
subtract
you're giving so many
two
spots,
spaces
because we
and-
give the tenant just 1 spot.
Right, so by
Single.
zoning, you
Yeah.
have to give them 2,
Oh,
but, right, no matter what, a dwelling requires 2.
just 1 gentleman that lives
But,
there.
you know, that reduced, we giving them 3 because you had 3 bedrooms.
No, it's
But if it's
definitely
only a 1 bedroom,
bedroom.
then we only have to give them 2, so then we reduce our count
Yeah,
for
I said
them
that
to
in the last
just 2,
meeting, but-
and then giving up 1 and taking 1, we're better.
So it's sort of a net,
And that,
Right.
yeah, and that
you're even,
impact.
Well, this is,
That's what
the
we-
zero impact, yeah.
big
Yeah.
thing here is this is not the last time we're gonna be here.
No, I mean, I believe you're the owners, right?
We are.
Yeah, you're coming back probably to do that building, right?
We're considering it.
Yes.
I mean, there's gonna be more changes, more tenants, et cetera.
We'd love the tap room to get even bigger.
Well, we would too, and I think we do have a little bit of an issue because we have it as a consumer services, so if something turns into
Then it would have
to an
to-
establishment, we need some, you know, unfortunately.
We'd have to change everything, because I
Yeah.
think in that district, where you are permitted to do restaurants, aren't you?
Yeah.
With special permit and,
I mean, that's,
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
that's for a later discussion, you know.
right,
Yeah. A Lord Hobo's coming in, right? We'll announce.
Oh, we live right near there.
You live right near there.
Really? Yeah, we do.
The front building used to be a restaurant.
The big improvement is
Yeah.
from what was
Norm's?
before.
Oh, I think from the
I lost
first plan
track of
I saw
conversation.
last-
Totally makes sense now. This is what we were looking for.
I know, I understand.
All right, so,
There should be some landscaping, but
Now, there is the question, if we're gonna be proceeding
it's field.
to looking towards an approval, this issue of the stormwater, or the wastewater
Oh, they'll
holding
shoot,
tank. So I guess, hey Larry, do you wanna speak to that?
I'd be happy to speak to several things.
Okay.
yeah, actually,
Oh my gosh, Larry, it's, I feel like I'm in the Wizard of Oz, don't you?
it's a very deep-bodied voice.
First of all, I'm glad the board understands the report number 2 and the bogus plan and all that's behind us, so we don't need to go there. But some comments that Jill hit on half of them, but of these parking spaces. First off, my comment number 6 is with respect to the 7 southerly-most parking spaces. I think the board should note that those have been extended beyond the existing edge of pavement toward the southerly abutter by about 10 feet or so. And they did that in order to have an aisle width to have angle parking off of both sides. And all I want to do is point it out to the board. They end that parking about 10 feet from the southerly property line, which is that wooden privacy fence. So there's still 10 feet of area there for snow plowing, or perhaps some screening or landscaping. Then I'll go to item 10. 10A is the 2 parking spaces out in front of building number 1. I don't recommend approval of those. They're going to require people to move in and out of them directly off of Main Street. And whether they're there or not now, that'd be a nice place for a little landscaping or something, but it's never a good idea to have parking for an establishment that, maneuvers in and out, even for private driveways. So I don't recommend those 2. As far as 14, 15, and 16 go, I recommended they be reduced to 2, but I'm okay if you leave them at 3. But I do want the board to note, Jill sort of skipped over the fact that if you park there as they are laid out, the passenger side door is not going to be able to be open because of the fence. So the fence would need to be relocated along the back. Similarly, the 23, 24, and 25 blue parking spaces on the northerly side, that's the driver's side door. And what are they stepping out to? 25, I guess it might be 23, would be very close to the fence, probably 3 feet or so away. And it might be a little tricky if there's a curb there to step out of the driver's side over the curb and with the door not fully open because of the fence. So those are things that I think the board should take note of, not necessarily not approve them. But I think the material from that curb line, if there is a curb there to the fence, should be as friendly as it can be so that people stepping out of the driver's side doors are not likely to turn an ankle. That's that, and then 10E, if you look at green space 16 and gray space 17, up in that corner where it makes a right turn, hard right turn and goes back out to Main Street, that's an awkward radius. It kind of pushes people driving down that aisle to the left and then a hard swing back around to the right. The only reason I can see that they did that was perhaps because of cover over the septic tank and the pump chamber. And if that's the case, I I think they can look at lowering the septic tank and pump chamber both. You often can't raise them, but in all cases you can lower them if the cover was the issue. But that's just an obstruction to plowing. It's an obstruction for a larger vehicle, longer vehicle, pickup truck or something. It needs to be revisited and redesigned with a smaller radius. I see no purpose whatsoever, other than the cover purpose for the septic tanks, to have that radius the way it's drawn.
Larry, just because you're not here to point it out yourself, could you give me a little more clarity about what we're talking about? Okay.
Yeah,
The island.
page number
So
16,
it's built.
gray space number
Gotcha, I was
7.
looking at the wrong side of it, okay, gotcha.
We can
Saying
easily,
tighten the radius up, so it's.
Yeah, right,
edge
right.
of parking lot.
it's really
So
not
I-
easy to have that radius.
I don't understand why it
Why don't we
was
just cut it?
bumped out like it is,
You know,
again, other
easier to
than
get in and out of that
trying
last
to
parking
convert,
spot as well.
green top over the septic tank pump chamber.
Yeah, we can tighten that up easy, Larry. There's no, I think it was just done to match like the rounding on the other side, but there's no need to have a rounding. You can do it just as easily coming flush, like coming up to those septic tanks and going across. Troy just said like, bring them forward, tighten it up.
Yeah, I don't know what the cover, if it's a cover issue there. That's the only thing I can imagine. That why he did that, because it's just very awkward. So that needs to be revisited for whatever reason and taken care of.
Could even be hashed out.
He just said that the paving
Right,
contractor's
you
gonna
could
pay.
pave through
They're
it
paving
and
it
just
flat.
paint it out.
Yeah.
Paint it as an
Oh,
island. You
that's
just-
smart. I didn't
Then
think
that
of
car could drive out if it had to.
Yeah, so Larry, the owners are saying it's gonna be flush. When he comes in and he paves, there's not gonna be any hump and a bump. So what we'll do is we'll just hash over it, but we'll leave it unobstructed.
That's fine. I just think you need to talk to Bob Grasso, because obviously he did that for something, and the only reason I can think of is
Yeah, he
septic
is.
tank cover. I have no information on the cover on those tanks right now.
They're gonna be flush with the pavement, so you can drive right over them.
Right.
And they were put in the driveway so they can be pumped out in the middle of the night on an emergency if you had to have an
I think
emergency.
So that's not the-
any of the berm around the building,
Can be ignored.
just line paint it. It's just, that's hard to plow. It's Cape Cod, it's gonna get peeled up. I mean,
Okay.
if there's no reason, if it's not protecting the building, it just should be flush.
It's
and just line painted.
It was, I think the sole purpose was Bob put it on just to kind of direct people through.
Right.
The outside one is to stop people from going.
Correct.
So Jim's.
Yeah, it's just very awkward. Now, if you swing out the ride around that, you're gonna be looking right at the rear end of parking
25.
space number 25, I think it is.
Yeah.
You know, it's just awkward.
Yep.
That can be scrutiny, I guess, if there's no tank cover problem. So those are my comments. Again, that fence in the back of building number 1, that definitely needs to be relocated, because you can't park tight to the fence and be able to get out of the car.
No, we're gonna end up, I just looked at the owners and they're willing to move the fence so that you can swing open your door. So that
So the
requires like a
regulation.
3-foot.
So-
radius.
Yeah, the most important thing of your plan here is your parking, so.
They're gonna move, yeah, they're gonna move, because all it is to provide a backyard for that, so we're gonna move the fence like 3 to 5 feet.
It's either a fence or a guardrail.
What about,
So those are my primary remaining issues, Mr. Chairman. And I think if you eliminate those 2 spaces in the front and perhaps need to redo the table and maybe adjust 1 or 2 spaces here or there. And then again, I think that, what we've been driving for here is to come up with a parking plan that provides for the proposed existing uses and may limit or dictate what any further proposed uses might be for the 2 existing buildings or a 3rd building if it comes up. So I think we're almost there on that part. However, I don't think it checks off all the boxes for a completed site plan submission. As you generally look at screening and landscaping, grading, lighting, walks, particularly for the handicap spaces, walks to get to the doors of the of the proposed buildings that they will be serving.
So relative to the handicap accessibility issue, when you get the building permit, you're required to demonstrate accessibility, and that would, the building inspector actually measures slope, distance, width, and you have to have a ramp. So those, all those things, regardless of what we put on this plan, it's gonna be all about the building inspector measuring those things, because certain distances dictate what that can be. So we're more than, it would be conditioned. I would assume we could actually proceed with site plan approval and simply say it's conditioned upon, meeting all the ADA accessibility.
Demonstrate it, though.
And as far as screening and landscaping goes, I mean, the existing landscaping is the existing landscaping. I agree that we're adding a dimension and a use, but we're not adding buildings. And the only pavement we're adding is switching that gravel in the back to actually pavement.
One thing on the landscaping front though, the southern border, the southern fence there.
I'll be right back.
Okay,
The southern
thank you.
fence?
No, pardon me, you're expanding the pavement to the south up against that
here.
fence.
Yep.
And Larry mentioned that there's enough room there for snow storage, which is good that we have some of that
Can you go
built
up so we
into it.
can see?
But
Which one?
Go up.
but you are pushing it closer to the abutters.
No, they're
And
right
as much
beside.
as they're not necessarily here today, they have been present and they've raised some concerns. I'm just thinking that some additional landscaping or screening in there that might cut down on noise and perhaps some of the light bleed, is it possible to put some screening along the fence there?
What's there for a fence?
So,
6 foot
it's a wood
I
fence.
mean, if it's a 6 foot stockade, if the light doesn't transmit and it's a beautiful buffer, I mean, a tree, what are we gonna put there?
I guess I was thinking,
I understand, but
There is a lawn there, there's a lawn along the side
That
of,
fence has been hit prior to you being the new owner. Tim used to be my Volvo mechanic.
repair guy.
Here's an idea. If you eliminate the 2 parking spaces out front, you probably could pick up 3 parallel parking spaces along the street on your property and still work to control any pedestrian traffic, which is minimal at best on that side of the street. But I would leave a paved area where you have the 2 parking spaces just for unloading.
I think I designate them spots just for unloading.
But see, if we do that, we need to actually make it up.
What I was
If you
showing
do
John
parallel
is
parking on a street,
on the
I don't know that- I think
parallel
that's
parking
probably
on the
worse.
street.
because don't forget how you
I'll let you
parallel
take a
park.
picture of my sketch.
You gotta saddle up on side, back in, back out.
Is there parking on 180 in that section? Is that a no parking
It's,
zone?
well, it's not defined
no
because all
parking.
of that,
There's
it's
a sign
all,
right in front
I
of
was
my
gonna
house.
say, I think there's no parking on that section.
So the
You
only,
can't
the-
park there.
are you to the south or the north?
he can park there if it's on his own land.
Okay.
It's all paved already.
but you can't, you have to
You can't
remember how
park
you.
on 1A.
parallel-
There's no curb there.
Yeah, I know, but that's part of the problem. There's no curb, so if there were a curb, you would be able to
Is that a
park.
utility pole on
I don't think there's any,
There's
there's no
usually
shoulder to
provided
park
There's
in.
no shoulder parking.
Well, I'm saying park on his own land, parallel,
Well, you have to park under the underhang or the overhang.
Yeah, that would be worse.
not quite,
Well, I think there's a pole there as well.
it might be.
There's room
Yeah,
to
there's
park in
one
front of the
right there.
building. There's room to park in front of the building. Could be pick up and drop off.
I don't have a problem with that.
Well, I think they're gonna be temporary, I wouldn't say temporary, short-term parking, that's all for the retail use. So it's gonna be very minimal use.
But we don't, well,
I mean, the screening doesn't bug me, but if the fence needs to be up to par, I mean,
Oh, it is, so
It's
is
up
it
to-
damaged, the fence?
Yeah.
Stockade?
Which one?
The stockade.
Which
On the south?
side?
self,
The the one that got hit
Knowles'
with the,
side.
with the plow?
Right, that's up to par now.
So
That's
that's,
good.
well, he changed a few sections there and
John Sardillo.
John Cardillo's, that's John Cardillo's fence on that side?
If you go back to the sorry,
Go ahead.
but if you go back to the original approval for the expansion of the garage, I believe that Neil Purley was required to put that fence in. So that's not John's fence, that's.
goes with the property.
I'm not gonna get into that discussion,
Well, I'm just
but the
saying.
fence looks good now. right, after they fixed it.
So I raised this issue, I was just thinking if we needed to do some additional screening or sound barrier, and I guess it was the sound barrier that I thought a couple of arborvitae's might create. That said, it also, we're doing snow storage, and the snow would very quickly dry them out, right? So maybe I'm going in the wrong direction in suggesting it, but does anybody else see anything that we might consider doing
A
to?
little bit of, finding some spots for a little bit of landscaping helps the beauty of this retail.
Yeah,
We put some planters out front, I don't know
I
if
saw
you saw
those.
them, I paid a lot of money for those planters, like, I spent about $600 out there for those beautiful planters that are out front. There was nothing there when we bought the property,
Get
it was
five more.
So if,
Who bought it?
24 and
Who bought it?
23, the parking spaces. On the back of the berm, is there any way we could do
The
like a
tenant.
3-foot, not
Is there a
sidewalk,
tenant?
but if
Is
the
there a
guy's
tenant?
On the
paving
first-
there,
on the
we put a
second
little
floor.
walkway?
he does
Behind
work.
them?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so that, you know what, that's simple. So can you push this down, I'm just gonna show you, because it's very minimal amount of bituminous. Can you make?
yes,
Like, no.
Larry, could you come back in 1 second?
Yeah, it's Larry Graham, whatever.
So what he's asking is, see how we have the bituminous berm going and extending behind the purple spaces?
Yes.
Instead of ending it, can you just extend the bituminous so that when people step out of their car, they're actually stepping on a similar graded surface to the parking lot? So you can just put a white stripe, but don't put the berm. So you come out, there's
No,
a
you
white
could-
stripe and you just walk, is that
I
what you
was,
mean?
no, I meant like leave the berms so
Oh.
you back into the berm and then have like a 3-foot sidewalk on the back of it, just out of asphalt.
So there's an asphalt driveway and then there's dirt, lawn, weeds
Right.
to Dan's fence already, and it's this wide.
And he's asking, can you just pave it that wide so that
That way
people
when you
step
get out
out?
of your car on that side, you have
So
something.
you wanna
to
pave
do.
it to the fence, you're saying?
If that's what 3 feet puts you,
Well,
I mean,
the paver was supposed to show up tomorrow, but it's gonna rain, so
I don't think you'll see him
we
tomorrow.
won't see him tomorrow, but we're gonna see him because he's on our radar, so.
And,
It doesn't have to be same day.
you don't have
I
any
mean,
trouble with water running on your property, do you? You're a little high.
No, but I think for the fence, that fence, Tim and I split, the cost of putting that fence in. And I've been maintaining it, and some of those posts, if you pave right up to the fence itself, it's gonna be really hard to maintain the fence because I've had to put galvanized pipes down because it's an 8-foot fence, so you've got 14 feet of.
All right, well, maybe you leave the berm out there and you just grade it with gravel or something
Well,
walkable,
actually, maybe
stone
it's gravel.
dust.
We can put
That'd be better, right?
the stone that's there now.
Yes.
Have you guys been out there at all?
Yeah.
I haven't walked it, but I'm certainly familiar
But
with
it's
it.
still there.
I wish-
But your point is a walkable
Hey, guys,
surface.
look.
We can
Larry's
put
fear is
that
you come up
same
with a whole
stone
angle off the back of a berm.
on the right hand
So the point
side,
is,
and
maybe
that will
walkable
Make it
solve
the
surface.
same-
water
make it the
So
same
then
problems.
levels,
bituminous,
but
it'll
yeah.
address him to do
We won't
the
be-
gravel.
We won't be,
Okay.
Easy to
It's
do.
a less impervious surface, so I
it'll
think
look,
that's good.
it'll look nicer, it won't look weedy,
Right.
and
Right.
Yeah, so if you do the gravel.
We'll do the
that-
gravel
and
going
that'll
all the way
satisfy
down.
you. Yeah,
So that's on the northern side.
yes.
Put something under the gravel so the weeds won't.
right,
grow.
the
That doesn't
cloth.
always work.
Then they
The
just
dirt
roll
gets
the
on
gravel,
top
yeah.
and they grow on top.
Right.
Yeah.
Just need some good
It takes a
weed
while
killer.
longer.
So with that, I'm trying to get closer to something that resembles an approval. Are you in agreement that these spaces to the north
Will be 2.
will be 2? Okay,
Purple goes to 2,
fine.
No berm.
no berm.
Stone,
Snow on the other side. How do we're gonna put into any order compliance with the health department and the ADA.
Of course, yes.
I mean, I don't want to disregard Mr. Graham's comments, and I feel like backing out onto Main Street for those 2 spots for the retail is problematic, because that's probably gonna be the most active spots on the site. And I guess I'm always assuming that there's gonna be a convenience store there. Very well could be,
But what we can do then,
with high traffic. I don't know what the retail use is gonna be, but it could be that.
we can limit them to employee only, so they only get access twice a day.
if you back, can I speak?
Sure.
Thank you. If you back onto Main Street, there is a lot of space there. If you're not backing 2 feet into the street, you're backing You're probably backing up,
15 feet.
you're probably backing
You get
15
about
feet
10
before you hit.
You probably have enough room to turn around right there before you get
You
hit.
can turn into the driveway and drive off. There's plenty
You
of
got
room.
about 10 feet.
I would argue that you've got a lot of traffic coming from the development across the street from my house. There's a lot happening right there.
Okay.
And backing on, you know, that represent, because especially, this site, except for maybe Norm's 25 years ago, hasn't seen the level of activity that you're proposing here. So there's a lot going on between coming out from across the street, coming out, which, you know, the flow of the traffic is dumping out right there. So you've got coming down from southbound from 1A, you've got people coming out from the development across the street. You know, there's a lot happening.
So why don't we just say that those will be employee parking spaces, they'll be infrequently used, they'll literally come to the site, park, and they will stay there all day. So that way they can be used for loading, for parking, and then we continue to meet our parking requirements.
Who watches that?
Yeah, it's not
That's-
regulated.
Signage goes a long way though, because it does dissuade people from parking there if they pull into a
Yeah,
spot that says
employees
employee parking only. I'm not disagreeing with you, people.
Right, but you can't
Right.
assume non-compliance, you have to assume compliance, if you require us to
Well,
put
you
that on the
could-
site.
Use the trick, and I call it a trick, move the handicap space to that space.
Right.
It then gets infrequently used, and it can also be used for loading. And just put one handicap space and change this other one to a regular space. And it's near the entrance.
It's an even
I'm
tougher
sorry, Dave, I
backup,
just
tougher
agree
backup
with
for a
the
van.
handicap space there.
I wouldn't put
You're
it,
supposed
yeah.
to not be back in.
Well, it depends on what side the hash mark of the handicap space is.
So I think, I just heard Mr. Graham say he doesn't really agree with repurposing the handicap spot. Larry, I cut you off earlier, so go ahead.
Well, I guess as a compromise, if they are employees only, and we can expect to have 2 employees in the retail store, employees only, and loading only, and sign it that way, I guess that's a compromise, but, just for common parking, I say no.
Well, let me ask you this, would it be possible to assign those head-on parking to the residential?
But then you're talking
Well,
about more use.
No, I
Way
think
more
you
usage.
still have the same issue, whether it's
Right, you do, I
residential.
was just thinking it would, I was thinking it might cut down on the traffic.
If you actually do it
The number of
retail,
trips in and out of there.
if it's retail, right, it's then done very infrequently. It's set based on the retail hours. If we put employee and loading only, that it's gonna limit the use, and then the employees are going to park there.
Yeah,
So,
And that gives
just
the
trying to,
appearance that there's a customer there or something already too.
Oh, it's better for the retail company, you always have spaces filled.
I'll go along with
I
that.
don't mind it.
Yeah,
so we can restrict the number of trips by limiting it to employees or loading, then I think we have
yeah.
done
I
something
think
to
that's a good
mitigate it.
compromise. Yeah.
I would think
Okay.
so.
I wanted to make a point about the landscaping, I think, maybe I didn't hear it because I was away for a minute.
We did discuss it, Larry, they are, for the most part, presently in the position that it's landscaped as is with a few new planters. We were talking about ways that we can,
Well, I think one area that you may have overlooked, if you can roll the screen up a little bit so you can see the rest of the site. Isn't the brewery proposing to use that concrete pad out back?
we actually brought that up, so we need to talk about that.
We don't know yet, I mean, it has to be approved, we'd love to be able to use it.
Well, I think that in that particular area, at least some arborvitae or some,
If we,
not deciduous, but coniferous type vegetation in that 20 feet to the fence would, might go a long ways to mitigate some sound if that's
I
good
have,
potential.
I agree with you 100%. I think that if in fact that concrete pad is used and we get our approval to use it, we will landscape around it. Number one, we have to because the ABCC requires us to screen and protect so that you can't walk around. So absolutely, I mean, that's something that I know that Ms. Moriarty would come.
That does bring up that next question, we kind of just haven't addressed it yet, but, I think I want to talk to the neighbor. What kind of an impact would that have? Are you, do you have a great deal of concern about that potential?
Well, I think that's more of a question for John Cardillo, because he's on that side.
Oh, okay.
I'm on the north side.
Can I speak?
Please, yeah.
Thank you. Bob Souza, one of the owners, and I spoke to John many times about the brewery, and he was in favor of the brewery, and the brewery impacts John Cardillo more than it does Dan, because it's very close to John's property. But John is for the brewery.
Has he commented at all about the potential for using the outdoor patio for?
He had no problem with it.
And he gets notice under the ABCC, rules when we submit. He gets notice about the whole thing, outdoor activity. It goes, God bless you.
I did speak to John the other day again about last week, and he said, yes, I'm for it. He's not here opposing. He actually, on the first meeting, if you go back and look at your notes and your, so forth, he was for it from day one. And he was here supporting it.
No, I've talked to him too.
But we will be landscape, we have to landscape it,
Yes.
you do have to protect it.
I mean, we're waiting, the landscape is like the last thing.
And
So
Kevin,
It just makes sense.
Right.
Doesn't the patio not line up with the space you're occupying, or is there access that directly?
there's a door back there, and you step out the door, and the patio's to the left.
Okay,
It's
that's
a-
not
it's-
gonna,
it's a-
you can
it's a
give
ma-
whatever space you want to
it's-
give them, but.
It's a man door, and you step
Oh, it
out to
does
the
have-
left.
Right here.
Yeah, under the COVID rules, it doesn't, but under the normal rules, you have to have control.
Oh, okay, and you do.
And it has to be fenced in, I believe.
Yeah, but it has to be, barrier. You can
Yeah.
use all kinds of things for barrier, but they provide, it has to be protected. So they don't want people just coming in, grabbing something.
That issue of the outdoor service, I mean, it seems like something I don't know, that's a real impact and a real change potentially, given how we improved this as a consumer services business where they're primarily showing off what they do, that is more in line with the type of activity that you'd have at a restaurant, and I'm not,
They're not coming here though to drink, enjoy, and have a party. It's really coming in, taste the beers, what do you want to do? I mean, that's.
Yeah, but going outside to have a beer changes the whole
Yeah, that's what I'm
dynamic.
getting
You're not
at.
sitting
Yeah,
at the
suddenly-
counter saying, I like this one, that one. I mean, if you
it
look
does,
at it from
it's
that
more of a hang when
perspective,
you're
yeah.
sitting out back. And I'm not opposed to that kind of activity in this site, yet the way we got here is through this consumer
I mean, if that's.
services business.
Right, and I would never want to hold up the site plan for something like this. I'd rather keep it on the plan, have to come back to you for it, but I'd rather be able to get the site plan approval because this is actually holding up, our liquor license approval, so that's impactful.
I
The
think
outdoor-
you just came across something that I would certainly think would move along, is if we could just hold that in reserve.
Can I just talk to them for 2 seconds then? I just want
Does
to.
that sound like something the board would, because we don't know what kind of, there could be 50 people there a night, or 100 people there a night, in which case, we need to know that before we want to say, okay, expand it out to the patio.
Well, I think this should come up again.
Which one,
We don't cover that, this thing outside.
So you think,
Well, a lot of places when you go in their tasting rooms, okay, you only get like 3 ounces.
I got this feeling he's gonna be hoping to sell 16 ounces.
But I'm
Yeah.
saying,
So why
if you did the tasting and you wanna do, if they wanna sit outside and sip it, try it, that'd be fine. But anything over like a 4-ounce glass doesn't go outside.
Well, that would certainly be one way to dissuade the use, but I don't think that's consistent with what they are hoping to.
They realize that.
I talked to the client and basically said, listen, I don't want that to hold up site plan approval because we do want to move
Yeah,
forward. And I think once he demonstrates being a good neighbor, a lot of things change. I find once somebody gets into a neighborhood, it's amazing how much people will embrace it. You have people walk over, hey, I'm gonna go buy a beer, hey, I'm gonna go try it, oh, I love the new thing, oh, they have the new, pumpkin spice, I think it's pumpkin spice. So, people move in, not you? I heard there's a new pumpkin, I wish I could remember what the, pumpkin spice whiskey or something.
Isn't that coffee?
Yeah, I did see something.
It's in everything.
It is, Dunkin' Donuts, right? So anyhow, he most certainly is willing to put that kind of aside. I'm not saying he's
I mean, I
not
think
gonna
if we-
come back, but for now, we would,
Yes, I agree with him. It's not an issue.
don't
We
approve
disapprove.
it. The patio exists, there's nothing we can do about the concrete
Right.
pad, but you wouldn't be approving the use of the outdoor.
That's
and
Our
you just have
approval
to
would be
put that.
silent to it.
Well, you probably have to say so, but yes, you would not approve that.
What about, are you
Well,
thinking
then our approval would have to say indoors, approved for indoor seating only.
Yeah, that's fine. We're okay with that, as long as we.
I mean, I don't wanna put something in this approval that potentially hand ties you down the road, so I wanna be careful to make sure that we don't,
So we just approved, I guess you could be silent, the concrete pad isn't gonna be approved for anything, I suppose that's probably the better way, but we can look at it, take a peek, see what it is. But the condition, as we all know, we're saying it right now.
Yeah.
So whatever's said during the meeting is gonna control the actual written decision, so we're agreeing, we're not gonna use the outdoor pad.
the outdoor seating, that would be part of isn't there actually a permit for outdoor seating?
Yes.
Yes.
So they would have to get that anyway.
I don't know what there is, I didn't know, is there one here?
Selectmen and then you get
Yeah.
the whole.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you'd have to get.
okay, good, so you'd have to start a process anyhow, and right now we're not opposed to it, I just think it's not something we can move on quickly on, and we don't know what type of business clientele you're gonna be drawing,
We don't have a
It's
problem
great.
with it. We just wanna get our money in the Nano Brewery, honestly, that's the
Normally,
big
you have
goal.
a seating plan, to part of the approval.
Well, we have one in there.
Screening and all
But
that.
not for the outdoor.
Yeah,
I
he's
agree.
talking outside.
I understand,
That-
Mr. Jacobs.
So it's not ready for
We have to have
Nope, so
So-
we're just
somebody
indoor.
outside.
So Larry, with that issue potentially put on the back burner by the applicant, is there any other proposed landscaping or screening we might wanna consider? Larry?
Had enough of us.
There we go. There are some trees along the border, and that is a nice, privacy stockade fence on both sides, so I think you've got a lot of the screening in place. Landscaping is probably at your discretion as to how it might make it look a little nicer in the front, and screening, landscaping next to that pad, whether it's used eventually by the brewery or whether it's used by the car dealer guys. Certainly wouldn't hurt to have some evergreens in there.
All right, so. David, with these comments, so how do you want to attack the next step of this thing?
I would love to get site plan approval so we can go forward with the liquor license, because that's killing us, because the ABCC right now is 6 to 9 weeks. It is brutal.
One thing we haven't talked about is that underground water.
Tight tank.
But it's underground, that's something that the Board of Health and the DPW approve, it's part of stormwater. Oh, no, that isn't stormwater, that's actually for the processing that's Board of Health, it's underground, it has.
Does it have to
nothing
be
do with
underground?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Really? Okay.
Where will we put that?
Well, I think.
Well,
they-
no,
It's a 2,000 gallon tank, that's a weird tank.
It's actually a DEP approval.
You have to go, it's kind of perfunctory, but you have to get approval, so it's not a site plan approval issue, because it's not a structure anywhere.
Okay.
But I guess the health department is concerned that when it's gonna go in, who's gonna put it in, when it's gonna go in.
We have to apply to them for it, so they don't have to worry.
So it go in before the use initiated.
It's part of the plumbing permit, so
But
when
do
you
you have
actually go in, you have to apply with your plumbing permit for it.
I mean, the way I became aware of the issue was I heard it through the health department, and it seemed like having this tank may be discretionary, given that you don't have any.
Well,
I
they-
question whether it's
I
not
was-
part of the plumbing code and the Board of Health, because when you go in with a food use, right, there's certain foods that require it, because you can't dump them right into a septic system.
Grease trap.
They're concerned.
Right,
it's
like,
not
you
damage
can't
might
even do that, like, you have to trap it, so it's all, this is all plumbing
There's
and Board of Health.
indirect waste pits, if there's vegetables, and then there's grease traps for any fried food or.
Right, and then we have milk solids, and you have plant solids like butters.
But this we have to sign
So-
off on before
Yeah, all-
the occupancy permit.
As long as you put in your site plan approval requirement that you must meet all, all regulations for plumbing, for Board of Health. You do, you can't get a building permit sign off and be able to go through to occupancy without that.
All right. I know you're in a butter and you're to the south side there. Is there any other concerns that you mean?
Well, I just have one question. Bob is saying that he's reducing his parking spaces on the auto sales down to 7. And I'm not sure this is part of what you guys need to do, but how does that correspond to the special permit that he has for?
I believe he's gone back to town hall, or something to get that amended to reduce the number of spaces to 7?
That's 7 outside. I still have 3 inside the garage
Okay.
and 2 beside the garage.
The 2 beside the garage are on here?
I don't see where you have that.
Yeah, there's 2 spots, you can get back there.
Looks like you're just trying to protect the use for the time being.
So we have,
There's 2 spots right here. I know they're not in here, I don't know why, they're like 3 here.
we can do 7 outside, we have 3 inside, that gives us 10. We're happy with 10. We're not,
Our space is very small there.
we're running a small business, very small business. Our operation is in Somerville for 42 years. We're not here running a huge used car business like goes on Route 1. We're not doing that.
There's like, plus when you have a special permit, if you reduce the use, the special permit is a permissive use. So if you go and we've already told you we're reducing, so we're actually eliminating some of the spaces. We're actually bound by this decision now, so it's irrelevant, the special permit was gave us more spaces, we can't use them. We have to come back to you to amend the site plan again, to increase beyond the 7 we show. That's really what the rule is. And those 7 we show are the parking spaces that were approved in those areas. Remember how the plan had those discrete areas? That's what they match.
So, to answer your question, they do have 7 spaces, outdoor spaces assigned to the retail car sales. I think with that, and doesn't show them on the plan, they've also demonstrated that they otherwise have adequate parking, even after we make some of these adjustments that we're talking about here. And, I think that issue doesn't seem like it should be sort of too much of a concern as an abutter. Is there anything else that I think we should be asking about, or potentially,
I voiced my opinion about the use, but, I'm not gonna support it.
Well, I mean, it always would be nice if we had everybody on the same page. In this case, the board exercised our discretion to make the decision we did, and hopefully we made the right one, and it ends up being a good, benefit for the neighborhood, or certainly,
As I said, I've lived next to this property for 35 years, and Bob has done a good job cleaning it up. But we live with whatever you guys decide.
Right.
So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, and what they've proposed, the thing is, they're doing this incrementally. Right now, this doesn't really offend our senses, I don't think. And
Here's what I wanna add, I will work with Bob on the next time he comes in on helping him get a little bit more landscaping out there. It's something that's agreeable to them and making the place
We'd be happy to do that.
look better, because I think it will help your ground floor tenant that's going ideally in that front building. Because that,
because the next time through is gonna be a special permit, then we'll be looking at these issues, so I think we definitely benefit from talking to David in advance.
I'm an architect, but I have somebody who knows landscaping available to me.
That's great. Well, what our thoughts were, can I speak? Is it okay if I speak? What our thoughts were is, we were grandfathered in that property for auto repair, right across the board. It was grandfathered, Dan, correct, Dan?
Yeah.
The property was grandfathered for auto repair. We wanted to go with Kevin, a local Rowley guy, and he had an idea with his Nano Brewery, and we thought that it was gonna be really better for the town and the neighbors as a Nano Brewery than auto repair with AAA backing in cars at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and just dropping them all over the place. And auto repair guys just leave stuff everywhere, being in the automotive
They're
business
kind of messy.
for 42 years and having automotive tenants for 42 years, they're messy. And you gotta keep on top of them all the time. So we thought this use would be
Something
better.
better for the community than auto repair.
And, you know, we could have went with auto repair grandfathered.
I agree with you on the philosophy, except I'm pushing a little bit harder or even better because of what's happened in Raleigh in the past 3 years. We've got a hotel that's doing well, and we just have a new bakery that opened next to the post office, which is doing fantastic, and
Every little bit.
that was a plug,
Thank
the
you.
bakery, because
The bakery's great.
It is.
and there's other vacancies in town. It's over 55 next to the Pancake House, they know very well. And so you're part of it, part of the improvement.
We'd love to be, and we've made some significant improvements, and we're working in progress. We're waiting for the paver, we're waiting for the painter. It's been a tough summer with rain, and so it, you know.
And you've got residential above retail.
Yes.
We're trying to do this out on Route 1.
I'm coming soon.
We'd love to rent the retail space out front, you know, which we're working with.
Yeah, we wanna find a
Kurt,
really good
We
tenant.
wanna find a good tenant in there that fits in the community.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for. We're not,
Good.
Well, good. No, I think, all right, so is there anybody else that has any comments from the local community that would like to voice that opinion? Sounds like that's a no. I'm gonna make a motion that we close the public hearing on this.
second.
All right, so all in favor, say aye. Aye. So the motion carries. So with that said, now we gotta consider what we can approve here. And I think what we're looking at is this plan with reducing one of your 3 spots to the north.
Purple goes to 2.
Purple goes to 2.
That-
The 2 in the front are to be with signage and designation in the order for, designated for employee only and loading and unloading.
Yep, signage, both, and then that radius,
You'll
17,
correct,
yep.
we'll correct the radius, not correct the radius, but bring the radius in
Bring the
line
radius
with,
in.
yeah.
And then, the walking on the opposite of what will be 23, 25. We need to make that stone so that we even off the grade.
And I talk, if you're talking to the engineer, I talk
Yep.
about most of that Cape Cod berm around the building, I just eliminate it.
Take off the
Line-
Cape
I
Cod.
just line paint it,
And we're moving that fence. The fence.
Removing the fence.
yeah,
yes.
removing the fence behind the
Remove the
building.
fence behind building
Cape Cod berm around
1.
the building gone, fence being moved 3 to 5 feet.
So somebody can get out on the passenger seat.
Those are the conditions.
And with that said, it's gonna be paved up to the fence, right? The newly relocated fence.
Yes, on this, but
And
where.
just to try to address the same issue Larry was, not stepping out into,
Yes.
into the.
Exactly, and that's because that's the
Dirt.
fence for the backyard, so we'll just move it
We'll
over.
take, the paver's coming, we'll tell them.
And I'll have that plan amended and resubmitted to you.
All right.
Now, we'll
Did you
report the next
Take
time.
notes on my, for the most part?
I read those
We
3.
can go over it again tomorrow too.
I'll remember.
Okay. Mr. Graham, is there any, if we were to consider an approval along those lines, is there anything else that we should be taking into consideration?
I don't know if you want to consider the landscaping around southerly side of the pad now or not, or are you just gonna let that go?
Larry, for the reason that they would need to go back to the Board of Selectmen and the ABC, which has some very strict screening and requirements, we're gonna be silent on it, and we'll have to see them again before they expand that use.
Okay. And you're satisfied with the lighting on the site plan?
That,
And lighting?
I think we did talk about that at a previous meeting, there really is no new lighting.
Not,
And yet the question is, do we need lighting because the hours of operation, is the parking lot properly illuminated?
it's probably illuminated, I think you can see it, and there's plenty of vision there. It's,
There's one light there that lights the front of the Nano Brewery up, and the used car, the two doors, lights that up, that's the only light that's pre-existing.
Okay.
we don't wanna make it too bright.
No, I don't think I
I
need
need some for those parking spaces. next
And
to
if you
it.
come back, we'll look at lighting again, you may need the lighting.
What were you thinking of, Troy?
I mean, depending on hours of operation, you're gonna want some light facing, coming out of those cars and walking into the building, you know?
That's a pretty bright light there now. I would, putting any more light, that thing is.
More would be too much.
Yeah.
The residence is so close, I
Yeah.
We would have like review in terms of the limited lighting enforcement bylaw. So anything they put in, you have to bring, any new fixtures, you gotta let us know.
We don't wanna light Dan's property up, to be honest with you.
Well, that would be my bigger, I mean, safety's a big concern, but,
The goal is to keep it calm.
nuisance on neighbors
If we
is.
wanna add a fixture, require them to add a fixture, but we just note in the approval that they have to bring it to the board.
We should probably do a visit.
I mean, well, somebody wanna run down there right now and take a look?
Yeah. Give me 15 minutes.
No,
Take a video.
it sounds like you don't need it, and
Face.
furthermore, we don't want it because it
Walk through it
wouldn't,
together.
be inconsistent with the neighbor, the character of the neighborhood.
And that's the point, we don't wanna
Yeah.
do that today.
And where, if there's adequate light so that we're not creating a safety issue by people trying to find their car in the dark.
We're not, and to the extent there is, we'll come back to you and tell you we need to have lights, because we're required to do that, but there isn't gonna be an issue. It's such a small area.
And then those lights that come off the front of the garage.
They come up the front of the garage, there's lights, along the street, I mean, it's not a dark location.
There's not a requirement to put lights, it's a requirement that if you do put a light, you have to.
Good, then
It has to
we're,
be a
All
certain
right,
standard.
forget those.
good one.
There you go.
There you go, okay.
And lastly, I think you should indicate that you're accepting the drainage wherever it is and whatever it is as is.
Okay,
If you're not going to look at that, then you should make that declaration.
Well, it doesn't seem to be a problem now, so.
It's just, we're not converting.
No change.
okay. Well, good, so thanks for your input on this, Larry, much appreciated, and hopefully it made for a better project. Any other conditions we should be trying to add to this? I mean,
Are you satisfied with the hours of operation?
we haven't really talked about it.
You don't really set that.
As a site plan review, we probably don't.
Yeah, because you can't, you usually set it, that's.
One question I do, I think I just want to get an answer to. It sounds like you've identified some snow storage space. Is there otherwise adequate snow storage, I guess, to the rear of those spots?
I mean, honestly, you need the spaces to be clear when you snowplow, and it's all that area in back. I mean, there's tons of snow storage
Okay.
here.
Okay, yeah.
Because if you've got cars in the lot while you're plowing, you've got bigger problems than snow storage.
You're gonna have to plow the wrong direction, unfortunately, though.
Yeah.
You're pushing it out into 1A.
They can always plow to the back and you just
Correct.
dump it in the
You just
middle.
gotta,
I mean, that's why the berm gets destroyed.
Okay.
We have snow management,
Yeah.
so we have professionals plowing snow.
Good. All right, well, then I guess that's sort of a non-issue then. We're not gonna be worried about people storing snow on the sidewalks.
doesn't say what sidewalk.
Yeah.
Well, there's no sidewalks. No, that's it. All right, so, I'm gonna make a motion then that we, approve the applicant's petition, with the conditions we've established, at this meeting today.
Was one of the conditions about the two front parking spaces being low?
Yes,
signage.
Yeah, we'll work together tomorrow, we'll do the conditions.
And Attorney Mann, just so I kind of don't want to hand tell you here, but I also want to get what we need. You said we can get a revised plan. Can we get that revised plan before?
I'm gonna do it right away.
Okay.
You
So-
know me, tomorrow I'm working on it.
Is there anything, I mean, you'll do it, so you'll do it.
Okay,
Should we
you
hold
won't-
something out, up, you know?
Well, you just don't write and sign the decision, because I know.
Oh, okay, got it, there, even better. We don't have to, you're not looking for
You
this.
don't have to
do the
sign
next-
the decision until I give it to you.
You can tell Jill's been at these hearings before.
Once or twice.
Yeah.
I am only
We
29
appreciate
though.
your guidance on some of these things. Okay, great. Well, then I think, we have a pretty good plan here.
I'll second it.
There you go.
Thank you. All right, well then, those in favor, say aye.
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 Wonderful.
So we have,
Thank you
4 in
so
favor,
much.
Mr.
I will-
Moriarty has recused, so congratulations.
Talk about meetings, I went to one last night, strangers from Essex.
Oh, please, that's an interesting
It
one.
was vague and everything.
Thank you very much, everyone. See
See you later.
you. See you soon. I'll be back with Route 1.
Oh, well, right.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You know, glad you guys are here. Hopefully you continue to go with stuff like this. Kevin's a great guy. Hopefully it's
You
gonna
won't
be good.
regret your decision, he's an amazing businessman.
No, we,
Find a tenant.
we've had commercial property for years, we're familiar with commercial property, so we manage commercial property. We're not just gonna let Kevin take over the whole neighborhood and upset everybody, that's
Yeah.
not our thing.
Not at all.
He takes
That's not our
dumps and
thing.
turns
And
them
Kevin's
into
not gonna do
palaces.
that. Kevin's
Should be in
a
trouble
gentleman.
here.
Yeah.
Kevin's a gentleman, you make the right decision for Kevin, he's a gentleman, and he's gonna be successful there,
Good.
and you guys are gonna be happy.
Hey, thank you all.
Congratulations.
Yes, we'll talk about that later, but, put the cameras on. Kevin, welcome back. Okay, so, we move forward. So the next item on the agenda is a continued public hearing, definitive subdivision, OSRD special permit hearing for the Danielsville LLC. Bruce Tompkins, trustee of the Tompkins and Desjardins Trust property owner, located in the outlying zoning district. Because, Mr. DeCoulis is not here, I'm guessing that's a,
It's gonna be here.
He was supposed to be here.
oh, is that right?
Yeah.
After 7:20,
That's not like him.
So,
it's continuing.
can I ask, is Jim DeCoulis available online? I just wanna make sure.
I didn't pass along the information to him.
So firstly, I think, I don't wanna, I gotta believe it's an oversight, because this guy's been on this case.
Yeah.
He must,
About 3 years
gotten his dates wrong.
It's,
I don't wanna prejudice him at all by it. Is there anything we can talk about, or at least give an update, Kirk?
Well, yeah, we could actually talk, you have the information about the two options that he submitted, and you can talk about those without, and Larry has, I guess, maybe has some things to say.
Good, so,
So.
Well, the first thing I'd say is maybe he might come later if you table it and go on to the
That's
next
what
item.
that's what I would say.
okay, yeah, fair enough.
Sounds like
Go and stick to
continuance.
7:30.
We're gonna do that. We need to move to table it?
Yeah.
No, all you have to do is continue it to later.
So I'm gonna just make a motion that we continue the public hearing for Danielsville to a second call. We'll put it at the end of the meeting tonight.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Alright.
Okay. The final item on the public agenda today is a hearing for a site plan application submitted by Elmer Valencia pertaining to the operation of a landscape and contracting tree removal operation with open storage related equipment, vehicles or structures for storing such items. Subject property consists of 3.87 acres off of Newburyport Turnpike in Raleigh, identified as map 14, lot 22-3, located in the Business Light Industrial District.
I understand he wants to continue this to the October meeting. Is that correct, Greg?
Yes.
Okay, that's a motion.
So David's motion,
Second.
Troy's second, all in favor, say aye.
Alright.
So what's the October date?
The October. Is October 13th. Yeah, I guess we always have the option, if we want to do or on the 29th, we could do that, but, he'd asked for it, so,
No, let's, yeah, if he's
I might
not,
have a problem with the 29th.
yeah, that's fine, so, obviously.
well, we didn't buy Mr. DeCoulis much time, I don't think.
No.
Some
minutes.
We can do minutes.
All right, well, let's look at some minutes quickly.
Well, there is the item solar, and if it's past 7:30, we need to continue, that was the.
Yeah, we did.
So.
And it's well past
The
7:30.
field corrections for the Raleigh Solar, then, you're gonna.
I drove by here today, the entrance road looks a lot better.
It's slow progress.
Yeah, but there is actually a field correction that's requested, for.
So we consider,
It's actually in the packet.
when somebody submits a request for a field correction, what we're trying to do is determine whether it's a minor, whether it's if it's a major modification, we have to have a public hearing, and if it's not a major modification, then we can handle it as a field correction. That's the determination we're trying to make, right, Kurt?
It's on the drainage pipe?
Yeah, there were 3 drainage channels that were dug.
That's a minor.
The owner is actually taking issue with it because they're saying it actually affects their access across that portion of the property. But Larry's recommendation was to basically put culverts in and cover it over.
Right.
So that shouldn't be a problem. So that's what the field correction.
Argument to. Listen to them, I knew, read their arguments.
There is actually in your packet, everything that has pages 30 to 45 is like the email exchange between.
Right, so I read the first line and said, here we go.
But page 29, that's actually the exhibit for the field correction. It actually shows the channels on there. There's actually a couple of other things on there that they're proposing, that are involved, in the 3. There's sketch A, B, C, and D, and the list of things are actually indicated on there. Remove silts from behind the check dams, place some extra stone, add riprap, fill in rills created by the erosion along. So a lot of these things are indicated. At the opening, at the entrance, reshape the existing riprap to create a riprap swell to direct stormwater. So just a number of these things that are just like, the big one on here.
What's the big one?
The big one is sketch D, the channels that were dug in order to get some of the excess water from that corner of the solar array, the easternmost solar array, and to get it to go to the drainage basin, the infiltration area. And so.
And that's where they carved those channels, right?
Yeah, their solution was to carve the channels. Larry's recommendation was basically to pipe those channels and then to cover them over.
And if
Raleigh Solar's aware of that? Is that what their plan is?
That's what Raleigh's, but the property owner actually is saying that these changes were made outside the site plan process. So I think hey Larry, can you speak to the field corrections about the legitimacy of the, whether?
I'm looking at GM2 Camet plan that says revision number 1, 8/26/21. I believe that's the most recent one that I've seen. And I'm fine with sketch A, B, and C as field corrections. I kind of gave up on sketch D because of the owner's disapproval of what they were proposing. And I think that the owner's approval is necessary before the board takes final action on it, one way or the other.
Larry, why would you?
Does the board have the plan?
Yeah.
We do, but why would? I mean, we're dealing with an applicant, not an owner.
Yeah.
So why would we need them to work out their differences, which they haven't shown any ability to do?
Because this was not part of the approved site plan.
So, I know, and so what I guess the question here is whether, do we need to open up a public hearing for a modification? Or can we, or in your, in your judgment, is this of such a minor correction or minor adjustment that
Doesn't need it.
right, there's no other proper resolution than what they're proposing. I mean, if this is really where we're gonna end up and this is what the site dictates, then I think then we could perhaps address this as a field correction.
I think the argument by the owner is the work was done outside of the approved site plan, and now the proposal is to correct or mitigate to the satisfaction of the owner what was done that was not on the original site plan. So I don't feel totally comfortable advising the board of a yay or a nay or a recommendation to do this for those reasons.
No, I think we're putting ourselves into a bear trap by doing it. So maybe we should just say we need to open a special, tell them to come back for a modification.
Right.
Yeah.
Either that, they can put it back, fill in the trenches.
Well, yeah, fill it back in and then say, figure the problem from there, I mean.
So
I think the action that was taken to drain the array field 2 toward basin 4 was, appropriate. I think the problem is they did it without, coming back to the board for a field correction, which at that time, maybe we would have made with or without the owner's
right.
concurrent.
Well, so, I just don't necessarily think we need the owner's consent or
They need
assent,
to put it back together the way it should.
but I think we would be opening ourselves up to some legal attack if we let them build what they wanted and then approved it subsequently. So I think, you guys agree?
Yes.
So would it be possible for them to leave the ditches as they are throughout the process of doing this? I mean, it would be,
Well, that's gonna be the
but
landlord.
if it's
fight
still
over
that way next year when they're looking to get the final compliant, we can't really move any further in the process.
That's
while
true.
it's outside.
We can't approve it
Yeah. So
Not as-
they, at some point,
as approved.
but they need to just do it by next year before we look at this again in the spring.
And you know what? A meeting just requires a little bit of notice and a couple of bucks to publish it and show up at the hearing.
Yeah, and we do it.
It's not a
I can
denial.
tell them tomorrow, we can maybe schedule it for the October meeting.
All right. Thanks for your input on that as well, Larry, because I don't.
I'm not sure I understood or heard your final decision because you're breaking up a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. We said we're going to tell the applicant to submit a request for a petition for modification.
Right now?
And go for public hearing.
Yeah.
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 Come back for
Yeah.
a public hearing for a modification.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the only two options.
Yeah,
If it's not a
exactly.
field correction, it's a major modification.
Yep. So that's good. We don't even need to take a vote on that, do we?
No.
Okay. So we'll see it back again as a public hearing. All right. So one more time to see if Mr. DeCoulis is here, and I don't think he is. With that said, you guys want Kurt? He submitted a couple of new proposals, and if it's okay, I'm just going to tell you what I thought we did here. When we were last in an open meeting. Oh, actually, no, I shouldn't say that. Since the last public meeting on this, the various town departments met, and after hearing from public safety and highway, it seemed like the consensus was that to presently accept this as a public way didn't make a great deal of sense. For the reason that it only serves 9 houses, there's no connectivity. Other similar projects like this are private ways, so this would be consistent with past decisions. And yet, we still want that easement or potential access as a condition. But the applicant took that to mean, okay, if it's not a public way, we don't have to quite build it to public way standards, and we no longer need to deal with some of the public way issues that we were presenting them with. And he took that opportunity to come back with a new layout for this. So what he's proposed is two different proposals that I've hardly looked at. One maintains that loop, but makes it considerably, it looks like it's gonna be a slightly different location, right, Kirk?
It's pretty much the same.
Is it the same location? And the other proposal is that we do away with the loop altogether
Just long driveway.
and just have long driveways. And I think he's asked us, and he was going to ask us tonight to get some feedback as to which way the board would prefer to see him go on this.
I prefer him to stay the way he was before,
Yeah, I like the loop. The loop.
The loop.
with the loop and
Common
not
area.
not diminish the standards for it.
Yeah,
I think that's why, because, you know, he brought that in, like, just this week, as an alternate to that first one. And,
It doesn't-
I think it probably had a lot to do with, like, the discussions before that we had about running on a common area.
yeah, I mean, he's, you know, when we told him, the way this evolved was saying, you know, as an open space residential development, he had to confer some benefit upon the town to justify us giving him the high density, aside from the open space. We saw the benefit in the roadway that would connect adjacent space, but now the town more or less said, we don't want the road. Well, we want the potential, we don't want the road.
But the potential is still there.
The potential's still there, so that, for that reason, I still find the justification to approve the project, but not if he changes the proposal.
Yeah,
I think,
we weren't basing it on town acceptance.
No.
All the way through.
no, we were basing it on connectivity. We knew he wasn't gonna develop the bridge crossing, so we knew he wasn't gonna build it out.
No, he's doing the bridge, isn't he?
But no, he's not the roadway.
Pedestrian.
He's doing the pedestrian.
Pedestrian.
So-
So everything up to the point, it had nothing to do with town acceptance.
Well, we have to do the yellow walkway across the board.
Yes.
He'd still be doing all that. In fact, just, I don't see why not maintaining it as a private way changes this proposal substantially.
It's a private way.
But the town will never accept it with all the sewer crossings and everything.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we were gonna try to deal with, and I thought that's what he was gonna come back with, was a way to minimize the need for those easements. And what he was gonna make,
He wants this big system, and to do this big system, he needs to have the crossings for the sewer. There's just no way.
well, right, the
around it.
crossings for the sewer, but those can be sleeved, right?
Correct, but
Because he did say he'd get those, water management basins out of there, and he in fact would abandon them all together and go with, surface, drainage ponds.
retention ponds
Retention
versus
ponds,
infiltrated.
So now we're not talking about, the only easements we'd be looking at would be for the two sewer crossings.
I don't see one.
And maybe that's what well, now he's,
Yeah, but this is different.
so, Larry, are you still here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh,
So-
yeah, because the second one goes
I
away
mean-
because the loop's not public way.
Right, that wouldn't have to be a public hearing. Can you, I mean, after being in that meeting, I guess I thought he was just gonna come back and say, okay, well, it won't be a public way. Why do you think he's coming back with all these different alignments?
I have no idea, and Kirk followed it up with a very concise memo,
Yeah,
which I thought was right on about it being a private development, a private way, until such time as perhaps it becomes important to the town to connect to Weathersfield Street, big if, this is the connectivity as opposed to the Rick or Ricky A or one of the other alternatives. And, you know, I think this would be very easy to tie to the construction of that bridge, you know, too. this is never gonna connect unless somebody builds that expensive bridge.
Right.
So I think this, and I think we all came away from the meeting that this was gonna be a private way with the opportunity, however it can be legally constructed for the town to assume this in the future if needed for connection to Weathersfield. But I don't believe in my lifetime or most everybody on the boards will ever see this be anything other than a dead-end private way for 9 OSRD lots with the open space. It's probably just going to be utilized by the people that live there.
Stand by and patch him in.
But it's not gonna, why change it just because you?
Right, all the work we put into it.
Right, no, I'm not, I won't vote for diminishing everything. He's trying to cut some costs out. Those are-
Right, I mean, I'm not trying to say he did this, by design, but the reason we approved it was based on a concept that's turning out to not really have any value.
Well, we don't know that for sure, but we should plan that it is possible.
Right.
Give him a second, he's gonna call. He said he responded.
Okay, gotcha. What happened? Did he say?
No, he didn't.
Should
He'll
be
probably
here.
tell us.
So, Larry, I don't know if you just heard Kirk, but Jim DeCoulis is gonna dial in.
Okay, yeah, I'll just stay on.
So, I mean, I don't get where we're going. I mean, we worked on a design concept, we worked on the open
I'll
space.
gladly say that neither one of this is acceptable. We're gonna stick with what was proposed up to the last meeting.
I mean, I'm fine with him putting this, what do you call it, surface area retention, drainage retention
Detention.
ponds, as opposed to the underground, because I mean, the town doesn't wanna deal with it, it's more than, it's overkill right now. But,
So some of the yards turn into ponds.
I mean, I felt like, his biggest burden, I thought we were close to an approval. He'd have to demonstrate that he can come up with an easement for those crossings that isn't gonna be a problem for the town down the road. And likewise, I was gonna ask him to, come up with language for that, the town to accept the roadway at some future date. But then he came back with something totally, now he's changing everything.
I think he's here.
Okay.
Mr. DeGolis?
Yes, good evening.
Evening. So, we just, glad we were able to get you. I'm sure, I don't know how, well, and we just called the item, I guess. We've had just a brief discussion, but we're trying to understand why abandoning the public way as the roadway, why did that necessitate such a drastic change in the proposal?
I'm sorry, but abandoning what, the loop of the roadway?
No. I mean, maybe abandon is the wrong word. If we're gonna, after our meeting with the various departments at the town level, I thought we walked away with the understanding that the roadway would be maintained as a private roadway by the homeowners association, but that the town would maintain a right-of-way and the right to exercise a taking or an acceptance down the road as necessary. That in and of itself didn't necessitate a whole lot of changes on the plan or on the ground, and yet I guess I'm surprised that we have two different concepts again. I thought we already had the concept figured out.
That was not my understanding, Mr. Chairman. I thought that the private way was one option, and that I presented two alternative options where one would be a public way going in, which would avoid the immediate need for sewer easement, and then the second option would be, why not just put the sewer easement in now and deal with it so that we don't have to in the future.
Why doesn't it stay the way it was? This is David. All the work we put into the approval, leading to an approval, I'm not gonna vote for changes at this stage, because it looks like
David?
It's been cheapened up.
Yeah, I'm sorry, David, but this was all this was all driven by an opinion from town council, where he expressed concern that a shared septic system would require variances from DEP and the Board of Health. And secondly, that it would be very difficult to put sewer easements underneath the public way. That's what sort of drove these alternatives.
Well, I don't want to disagree with that entirely, but that's what brought his opinion raised the conversation, but then we decided that no variance would be necessary. So that issue really doesn't present itself. And we also, through his opinion, he advised us how we could go about this in a way that the town could accept those sewer easements.
Yeah, but I disagree on number one, Mr. Chairman. We do not have a resolution on whether or not variances that are necessary under Title V.
Okay, well.
How do we get that resolution?
Yeah, so I'm planning on meeting with the selectmen Monday night to address that. And, I'm on the agenda for Monday evening, and I may be appearing, or council may be appearing with me, and we're going to attack that and put this to bed so that we can get on with getting this project finally resolved.
Okay, so maybe let's just, can we, because I think if you come out of that meeting finding out you don't need variances, and then we're just left with this issue of the two sewer easements, I think our time would be best spent trying to figure out how to make those sewer easements work. But, and then otherwise sticking with what we'd already seen. In terms of.
Okay, and by the way, there's actually three sewer easements.
Okay. Well, right.
And so, and so you're referring to the loop being a public way as well?
No. What we're looking to do is reserve the right for the town to accept the roadway in the future. The roadway, not the loop. So you can have as many crossings over that loop as you need, because they're all going to be, on private land. But there's at least one crossing, and maybe you can consolidate it into one crossing of the roadway that potentially could become public.
Right, so we would prefer to have the way be accepted as public, at least the main trunk. We would prefer to have that be public now. And that's what led to that second alternative, which was distributed last week.
But for the reasons that we kind of outlined for you, that we've never approved a cul-de-sac OSRD as a public way, and this lends itself to sort of a neighborhood project. It doesn't, in a homeowners association, I don't see the benefit to the town of making it a public way presently. And the town has voiced opposition to doing so.
And we never encouraged the public way, other than future connection.
Right. I mean, we definitely have talked about needing the road to meet a public way standard so that we could eventually allow an abutter to, develop access through it. But I don't know why we need to take that roadway.
It's our option, isn't it?
Well, no, the town always has to put it to the town for vote.
Right, but can't we propose a project that we propose for the town to put it before the town for town acceptance for a vote?
Well,
Not until it's constructed.
I mean, I don't think, I'm not trying to be, difficult here, but you were at that meeting. The fire department doesn't like it, chief of police doesn't like it, the highway department doesn't like it, and our consulting engineer doesn't like it, and I gotta, I guess I'm not surprised that the board is starting to not like the public roadway either. So, and if it did come to a town meeting, you'd be the only proponent for it, because you'd have a lot of department objections, so I can't imagine, I don't know why we pursue that.
Well, I'm a little confused, Mr. Chairman, because the proposal that we discussed at that meeting did not have any of these alternatives with the private way. I don't know what you're referring to where these various departments all rejected it. I mean, it was, we had talked about some different scenarios, but we certainly didn't look at these alternatives that have been distributed over the last 2 years.
All right, so let me just because I want to just make sure we're all on the same page here. Kirk, you were at that meeting, and Mr. Graham was at that meeting. Did we not all hear every department voice objections and concerns to that proposal?
Yep, I think my recollection was that the highway department was there, and the Board of Health was there, in regards to the sewer easements. And my recollection is that a scenario where it was going to be a private way was a more likely scenario. Private way, with the option for the town to come in and have rights to it in the future.
Yeah, that's the way it always
That was
been.
my understanding of the meeting, of the outcome of that meeting. So I think that's where the confusion is coming in, is when we receive these two exhibits, they both still say public way for the main road. I don't think there's a problem with the loop, and I think the board prefers the loop to be on the plan and to be private, but the roadway, I think, should also, I think they're leaning towards being private, and that's what the department's kind of had expressed. Larry, what do you recollect?
I'll have to talk quick because my people are coming in, my dog's gonna start barking really loud. Just the last thing you said, I think, is what I took away from the meeting as well, that it was, I think, referred by all there and understood by all there that this being a private way would resolve a lot of issues, as well as it being a private way with the option for the town to take it if it was ever needed and someone were to build that bridge to connect us to the Weathersfield Street area. So my takeaway from the meeting was that we would see this being proposed completely as a private way and work out the terms of how the town in the future, if they needed to take it for connectivity, could do so.
I want to step back a second, if I may, Mr. Chairman. The reason for that whole meeting was that we had proposed a stormwater infiltration field underneath the public way. And Larry and Pat Snow had rejected it, saying that there was a threat of it failing. And so that's what sort of prompted the meeting. And for a discussion as to where we could go, and what were some options for us to seek final approval here. And so, I've been throwing out a couple of different alternatives based on our discussion, but again, what prompted the whole meeting was the stormwater management and the sewer easements underneath the public right of way. At the meeting, at the 11th hour, town council submitted an opinion. Frank distributed that to us while we were at the meeting. We all read it quickly. So my purpose is to address what town council had addressed in that letter at the selectmen's meeting next Monday night. And you know, I mean, I'd like to come back to the board after the selectmen, discuss this, and, you know, I welcome the planning board's feedback at that meeting. But, you know, that's, again, what prompted the meeting, was that, you know, there was the concern that the whole stormwater management system should change, and we were all sort of brainstorming as to how we could get to the goal line.
I agree with you, Jim, that those were the items that prompted the meeting, but then I think that the discussion kind of evolved during the meeting as to whether or not this project should have a public way, aside from all those, not all those, but those few issues. Maybe it should be a private way unless and until it's ever needed to extend through. So I think that's what happened. I agree with you, that's what prompted the meeting, but it evolved during the meeting, these other ideas about why should it be public, period.
Right. So, but I also think that a lot, you know, at least myself and Kirk came out of that meeting thinking that we were still on the same page as far as your design and your plan, that we would see, you know, the most significant revision that I thought we'd contemplate would be this being a private way. But I didn't think there would be any change in the layout, the design, the location. This seems drastically different. And frankly puts us back in a position of, you know, considering it as a first impression. It's not that much different than, so what would be the home? Why can't we go back to where we were 2 weeks ago and look at it as a private way?
Well, we would prefer for it to be public. You know, is there harm? No. But, you know, that would be our preference, is that the town accepts it as a public way, at least the main trunk. If the town has ambitions for extending this, why not just build the road to those standards, which it appears that you're gonna require anyway.
Right.
And why not have the town accept that? And this public way leads to public conservation land, you know? So, you know, the town is, the whole OSRD concept is predicated on land being dedicated for public use. And so the thought is, you've got a public way leading to public open space conservation land. That conservation land is best accessed over a public way.
Not good enough for me.
Well, I think what you're doing is you're putting it in a direction that's going to make it more difficult for the board to approve.
All right, so the board's okay with the private way going to public conservation land?
Yeah, there's about 5 of them in town.
And that's all we've ever approved.
And there would need to be an easement, a public easement.
Right. I mean, that's what Hart's Way, that's what
Twin
50
Hills.
Newberry, Twin Hills, that's what, there's a number of them in town that the donated land abuts it and is accessed over the private way.
Okay.
But there is a public access easement to that.
All right, so the board has no interest in, when I go to the selectmen on Monday evening, I can relay to them that the board has no interest in seeing this approved as a public way.
You can, well, I don't know how you want to carry, I wouldn't say the board has no interest in seeing this as a public way. We have a vested interest in seeing it as a public way if an abutter elects to exercise access over it, then for that reason, we want to make sure this road is built to town spec and it's something that the town could put on its inventory of roads. But we don't have a present need for it, and for that reason, I think the town would see it as an unnecessary, all it would do is put additional expenses on the town.
But you have 9 houses that are paying same amount of property taxes as everyone else that has frontage along the public way. That to me seems unfair.
But that's how we've done it and how most communities do it when they develop these type of projects. And there's it's not the first time we've heard people say, why don't I get those services and other people do? And the difference has always been because you're on a private road.
But we're building this private road to public standards, public way standards.
Well, you're building to the subdivision standards.
And you're an OSRD. So you get to do
All right.
a few other things.
Okay, and what about?
And this started out as a
so we don't
private,
have-
this started out as a private road. There was, I didn't
No,
hear
no,
any
it never
attention. It's a public way right off the bat. This is something new for me. Yes.
I'm sorry, but I beg to disagree. I just
Well,
think
you
that
can think
this
that.
has always been presented as an offering to the town to be accepted as a public way.
And we've been always taught that it's not our practice to do that. We haven't done it.
I think he's presented it as a public way, though, it has been from the start.
Yeah, no,
The standard has been a public way because of the connection.
No, it's been.
No, I think Troy's maybe right, and I don't want, Jim, I'm not telling you that we didn't have meetings where the public way was sort of an assumption of what we were considering. But that had more to do with, can we tolerate the easements in the roadway? And less to do with whether the town ultimately wanted the roadway as a public way.
That's what I don't understand. What progress are you thinking that are you intending to make when you meet with the Board of Selectmen regarding the easements, the private easements in a public way? Is that what the meeting is going to be about? I mean, how, if you do propose this to be public, how do you, deal with the issue of it being accepted? Because it probably won't be accepted by the town at a.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I think, Kirk, it seemed like Town Council Tom Mullen has addressed that quite elaborately in his letter to address issue number 2.
Well, he had touched on it.
He sort of laid out the framework for how the public way could cross over private easements. He didn't say it wasn't possible. He said, you can do it, but this is what you have to do. So that's one of the issues. And then the first issue was whether or not the shared septic system required a variance under Title V. So those are the two issues that I want to address with the selectmen on Monday.
Okay.
Look at the answer to this.
But I don't think Tom Mullen gave an exact outline of how to. I think he said it was possible, but in terms of the actual process, I don't know that he spelled it out.
Well, and that's why at one of the last meetings we had, I suggested that you might want to ask your council to draft up a proposed order regarding that easement, because Tom Mullen did say it's not a desirable situation, but it's not something that we blanketly must deny, and therefore we can consider it. It's got to be well drafted, and it's got to be it's got to make sense. So I took that to mean, and I think you took it to mean that we can still do these easements, but I also think that there's some legal work that has to go along with it.
Yeah, no question, and we're ready to accept that.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we're still, we'd like the plan that you proposed right up to the point where this issue of public-private became a problem, because we're all on the same page with that plan, I think.
Maybe we just need to wait and see what the outcome of the meeting with the Board of Selectmen is.
So, I mean, and yet I do recognize that if the Board of Selectmen says, well, first place, if the Board of Selectmen says you need a variance, well, it's very likely you'll get it. So that shouldn't necessarily change your design plan. But if it does, if they deny it, then you could, for that reason, you're gonna need to redesign it. So I guess you kind of need that answer first.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why we want to put the cart, we want to have the horse go before the cart here, and make sure that we get an adequate response out of the selectmen before we continue with our design. But I'm still confused. I mean, I just, every plan that has been submitted to the board, it says 55-foot public way, and I'm just, confused as to why all of a sudden this abrupt turn as to this going private. I know we talked about it at the meeting,
Well,
But,
I think it
to me, it sounded like it was,
Well, I think
it was one
at
scenario.
that meeting, it was like seen as a way of getting beyond this issue with the easements. I mean, if it's private, then the 3 easements crossing the road, you don't need easements. It's all under the homeowners association. So I think that's when we left the meeting, I think that was where we were coming from.
Seemed
Yeah.
to solve some problems and also be more consistent with our prior decisions.
Which meeting was this?
This was the joint one.
2 weeks ago, was it?
Yeah.
We weren't
So, because the
required.
last I remember was he was going to sit down with Larry and come up with a couple of new options.
Well, that was.
That was that meeting.
Yeah, that was
Oh,
the
okay.
meeting when it was, like, Chris and I were.
Yeah, and Brent and Pat and Larry and, yeah, and, Tom, yeah. It was a good meeting. I'm just confused that was your takeaway, Mr. Chairman, that we were all of a sudden just completely going private.
Well, but
Never,
I'm
it was
not,
public, it was never gonna be public in my mind,
I was, that was correct.
I mean,
at this time.
I mean, the whole point was the bridge and all that stuff. It's been private, public since the beginning.
and I think, well,
I think the
I
argument
don't-
was, do you not recall arguing about getting plow trucks around? And I mean, we've had discussions about this.
I
It's
thought
been
the pri-
public.
The public-private issue's been ongoing, it's been confusing, so I think, it has been proposed as public, but then we bring up the issue, well, we have these private easements crossing the public, how are you going to get it accepted at a town meeting?
I mean, at
I
our
think
last
that-
meeting was who's cleaning the catch basins? It's been a public.
The discussion's been confusing, so.
yeah, no,
But
It's,
it can't become a public way unless it goes to town meeting.
and
that's what they're going to try to address, I think.
so I think, and in the first place, if you need an apology from the board for being confused about how this thing developed, you have it. We didn't, our intention is to design and approve projects that make sense. We're all, having these discussions, we're trying to make sure that we're not, stepping out of line and making hasty decisions, but I do think we all did it in the context that once we get all these issues worked out, we'll come up with a vote.
This will be different because joint septic systems are usually done with private right of ways, not public, and that's where the confusion is coming in. This is a
Gotcha.
joint septic system, it requires easements, and that's where the confusion's coming into the picture, is because of that. This is an unusual case.
But,
I think we ought to continue this
Yeah.
until our next meeting.
and I guess, I go back to my last point, which is, I think we were all pretty, happy with what you had up until these last 2 revisions. So maybe, I don't,
Is this one, the one that has draft on it dated, the most recent one, September 2nd, is that not close to what?
It's close.
closer.
But the only problem, I think, is whether it should be public or private.
Well, you can't say public way until it goes through a vote of town meeting.
Yeah. Well, it's intended to be a public way, but it'll stay private until it gets accepted.
Right.
And if it doesn't get accepted, where it gets
Still
rejected,
private.
it stays private, yeah.
So,
Yeah,
And it's been very, very difficult to get those votes to go through town meeting.
Mr. Chairman, can I suggest one concept? And we prepared an extensive set of plans dated July 6th that Larry finally commented on like the 2nd week or 3rd week of August, I forget what the date was. Can I bring those set of plans to the selectmen, or can I use those as the base to talk to them on Monday evening and just say, look, we've got a proposed public way here, 55 feet way, with a proposed one-way loop, 35 feet public right of way. Can I use that as a baseline and then talk about maybe, 3 alternatives, one being that it would be completely private, a second being that it would be like, I think it was concept C, that was a public way down, was for the main thoroughfare. And then the last concept was what Kirk just described. What was it, September 2nd, Kirk?
Yeah, September 2nd.
Is the one you're calling Concept C pretty much the loop, but the loop is a private way?
I think Concept C was the one with the common driveway for lot 6 and 7. Which, you know, quite frankly, I don't think David would like, nor my landscape architect, Tom Ryan, but Tom was pushing me towards the loop regardless, whether it's public or private. It just seems like it's creating more of that common area that we're all aspiring to get, you know, under the shared septic system. But, I mean, we've been talking about a public way that is expressed on those July 6th plans that Larry commented. Can I go to the selectmen with that basic concept? That's sort of like the foundation of what led to this meeting, and then the concern about stormwater infiltration under the public right of way, and then town council's letter. Can I go to the selectmen with that July 6th set of plans and just say, look, you know, this is what we're trying to do, and get some feedback from them at that hearing, at that meeting, and then, you know, report back.
It seems like that would make the most sense, because that's the plan that's most likely to come before the board for approval. And I think, you know, my only, and look, I don't like telling applicants how they need to do things, because I could be wrong, and I don't want to be accountable for how you proceed. But with that said, if you do present them the July 6th plan, that's fine. But if we subsequently see a plan that's drastically different, then we're going to tell you to go back to the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, no, understood. But I mean, we've been making progress, and that's what led to the full set of July 6th plans. You know, I mean, we were making progress, and we all had, then all of a sudden, you know, town council's letter comes in, you know, and we had to change in the stormwater management design because Pat and Larry didn't like the underground infiltration under the public right of way.
Right.
So, you know, we don't have a problem amending and revising that portion of the plan. But the big issue here was town council, you know, and those two issues that he raised.
But, you know, and I think that the board's we're probably going to want to wrap this up pretty quickly. But the one thing I'd say on that is, all the information really wasn't in. We didn't have town council's opinion. We didn't, you know, we knew those issues were sort of novel, and I guess we shouldn't have been, no one should be surprised that we did get an opinion, and that it brought some issues to light that we might not have otherwise considered. So, but like I said, you know, we're not here to make this difficult for you, and to the extent that, you know, if it's been confusing, we apologize for that. But that was, you know, we do want to continue to work through this, and I think if you went into, well, before I say any more, I think we should hear from Larry, but I think if you went to the Board of Selectmen with the July 6th meeting, and that's what we ultimately end up approving, then I think we're going to be okay. But Larry, you still here?
Okay.
Larry?
I think he took the dog.
Oh, that's right, you did mention that. Yeah.
I'm still here.
So,
I just don't know what you expect from the selectmen's meeting.
We want to resolve the two issues that town council brought up, David.
well,
I don't know if they're qualified to resolve it.
yeah,
Town council will be there.
Okay, if town council's here, fine.
so, very good then. I think, you know, the issue that the board would like town council to, you know, if you need a variance, that's a whole other issue, but you're still gonna be working with the same proposal, the same common septic design. And if you decide that you don't want.
But that's what the variance is about, Mr. Chairman. It's about the common septic.
Understood.
It's about whether or not it's
But if town council says you're not gonna need a variance for this, then the next meeting we'll be looking at the same July 6th plan, wouldn't we?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. It would be, yep, no, I think you're absolutely right about that.
The only change would be it's how you're handling the storm water, which doesn't change the
Correct.
design.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
You're gonna fit the pond somewhere.
So,
well,
and then if the town, and the issue of, I mean, I can't, you know, Mr. Mullen gave his opinion in writing, I'm not gonna second guess it. It sounds like he said, well, it's not preferred, he doesn't see any reason why it couldn't be written into an approval that the town has the future right to accept the roadway.
Right.
So.
And yeah, no, I think that's the way I understood it as well. And, one other issue that I want to put out here is that Tompkins family wants to make sure that this easement extends into their other lands as well. So they want to make sure that this whole issue of a sewer easement is adequately flushed out by the town, and that it can be adequately accepted as a public way now, or shortly thereafter, if it's approval by the board, or at some point in the future. So we want to make sure that this issue of the sewer easement is thoroughly addressed and, adequate.
Then to that end, I think you could also represent to the Board of Selectmen that the planning board will work with you on finding ways to allow those easements and to anticipate those easements under a future public way.
Okay. Great.
All right.
Okay, so I think I've got some marching orders.
Well,
I'm gonna make a motion.
Please.
I'm gonna make a motion to continue this to our next scheduled meeting.
October 13th.
Second. I heard a second.
So I have David's motion to continue the 13th and Jack's second. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Okay, so, yeah.
Do you want to postpone the minutes to the next?
Yes, I think that's a great idea.
We have these.
Mr. Nicholas, thank you for coming in. I'm glad we caught up with you before this was over. I hope you do well with the Board of Selectmen.
I'm sorry, but is the board meeting second time this month?
No, there's nothing really necessitated it, so we don't have a second meeting at this point.
I think the 29th was the only other time, but if David, I guess we could have four.
Don't even bring it up.
Well, the only.
13th.
There is an application, like, John Collins has an application.
13th.
I'll tell you what, we'll take the, we'll go with the silver lining being that if you walk out of that meeting with what you want next week, then if there's any revisions, maybe you can get them over to Mr. Graham in time to have some comments before the meeting on the 13th.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping to do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm hoping to sort of fast track because, we're approaching a year here. This special permit and definitive plan subdivision was presented to the board, and it would be great to sort of get this to the finish line sometime shortly after next Monday's meeting with the selectmen.
Not to step on your toes or your words, but I think it's going to be a lot easier if we're looking at a plan similar to the one from July 7th than something that changes things.
Right. No, I agree. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Onward.
All right. So I can discuss this with Larry, and there's other concerns that he has that we want to address, and if we can get those to him, if we can complete all of Larry's concerns, what would be an adequate deadline so that we could go to the board on October 13th? I mean, if we have all of Larry's the selectmen and Larry's comments addressed by, say, the end of September, would that allow us to, have a more complete discussion as to whether we're up for a vote for approval on October 13th?
I don't necessarily want to speak for Larry, but I would think that getting something to him by the 22nd would be,
I think we all have the same ambitions, let's say, but it really depends on what I can't assign work to our technical agent with deadlines. So I think the best we can do is all just
Get it in as early as you can. That's the answer.
And if we have everything before us that we need to make to go to a vote, if we can consolidate any outstanding issues into a condition that we can set up, then yeah, we could be closer to we could consider a vote. But if it's okay, I'm gonna remind you again, it would be an enormous help to your petition if we can get your counsel to give us some draft language on how that future acceptance might read.
Yeah,
Because if
okay.
we're good with, if you guys come up with something that makes sense, if we're good with it, well, then we could probably do it. But if it's just, very opaque and confusing, then it's probably gonna have to go to town council for a review. So,
Yeah, no, our objective here is to work with town council directly with our council.
okay, and that would be,
Yeah.
good, coming out of that meeting
That
next
seems
week with
like
the
the
Board of
best.
Selectmen, hopefully you can just get Mr. Mullen on board to work through that.
Right, no, I guess my concern right now is not so much, legal issues, it's more Larry's review, because we submitted plans on July 6th, and I don't think, it took nearly 6 weeks to get a review from Larry, and I'm just wondering if there's any chance to, get that. If September 22nd is the fair deadline, can we assume that Larry's gonna have a written, opinion or comment before the October 13th hearing?
Jim, stop talking,
Yes.
we can't make assumptions for Larry. Just get it in as soon as you can, hope for the best.
All right, again, it's been a year, David.
You're asking for stuff we can't answer.
Larry's
not here.
I think the answer would be most likely yes, barring, I'm not planning any vacations, haven't been one for a long time, so it depends on other workload. I think the biggest question here is the one that's, he keeps bouncing off the wall and the ceiling is private versus public. But that's not gonna make a lot of difference as to how we review the engineering aspects of this.
That's more or less what I was hoping we'd hear, because I think it just means we're all gonna make our best faith effort to do it.
Great. Okay, I really appreciate everyone, working through this, because, I very much appreciate it. It's very helpful to discuss it, and, thank you for everyone sort of going through this, little laborious step here this evening. It's very much appreciated.
Well, we're glad if it brings us closer to getting something approved, then good.
Okay.
All right, thanks very much, and we're gonna wrap it up.
All right, thank you very much, everyone. Good evening.
All right, you too.
Thanks.
All right, so,
Everybody sign everything?
Well, that was the, what I sent around.
I don't think I signed it.
On my time sheet and.
It's all piled up in David's stuff now, I've got.
Not mine.
I never saw it.
You had it, right?
I had it in my hand and then you took it back, David.
I didn't take it back, did I?
David is stealing my time sheet. He doesn't want.
You don't get
It's
paid.
down on the floor. No, I don't
Oh,
have it.
open on the floor?
There, I have it.
Well, the door.
All right.
He's got it.
That's it.
Maybe next week.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Oh, we gotta sign all this stuff. Well, wait, I
So you
don't
don't
know.
have to be on,
No, you're right.
I made a motion to,
No, you can sign it, whatever you got.
somebody second the motion
Second.
to adjourn. Okay.
Second, okay, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So the meeting's adjourned, you can kill it, good.